Welcome, welcome to our fireside chat. I'm Susan Freewald, and as the 19th Dean of the University of San Francisco School of Law, it is my privilege and distinct honor to introduce this evening's event and our esteemed speakers. Let's start with Justice Corrigan, who will moderate this evening's discussion. Hailing from Stockton, Justice Corrigan earned her undergraduate degree from Holy Names College and her JD from Hastings College of the Law. After serving as a prosecutor in the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, Justice Corrigan was appointed to the Municipal Court and then the Superior Court in Alameda County before serving for more than a decade on the California Court of Appeal, First District. Justice Corrigan was confirmed on the California Supreme Court in 2006, and you will soon see why she was the favorite, hands down, to moderate this evening's discussion. And now I introduce to you two of the most renowned and beloved alumni of the USF School of Law. I speak for the entire USF law community when I express the utmost pride in the accomplishments of Justices Ming Chin and Martin Jenkins. They have inspired us not just by their brilliance, their leadership, and their character, but also by the generosity that they have shown to our community. They have both spent countless hours sitting on law school boards and committees and contributing their time, expertise, and wisdom in so many ways to educating and mentoring the next generation of lawyers, and really anyone fortunate enough to get to know them. I cannot thank them both enough for all that they have done to improve the lives and livelihoods of so many. In that spirit, I am thrilled to announce that the law school has just established an endowed scholarship honoring Justice Ming Chin to support USF law students. Please consider making a contribution to the Justice Ming Chin Scholarship at usf.edu/justice during or after this evening's event. Because I do not want to take up the rest of the hour, I will now give a much abbreviated overview of the justices' careers. Justice Chin is a double Don and a decorated Army veteran who served on the Alameda County Superior Court and the California Court of Appeal, First District, before being nominated to the California Supreme Court in 1996. Justice Chin retired from the Supreme Court in 2020, and his seat was filled by Justice Jenkins, a USF law graduate who obtained his undergraduate degree from a different but also impressive USF Jesuit university. Justice Jenkins served on the Alameda County Municipal and Superior Courts, see if you're noticing a pattern, the U.S. District Court for the Northern District, and the California Court of Appeal, First District. One more comment before we start. Justice Corrigan has selected this evening's questions from those you, our attendees, submitted. As you surely know from the confirmation hearings this week, justices may not comment on matters that may come before them, as much as we would like to hear their views on the pressing issues of the day. Justice Chin, though retired, continues to serve as a mediator and arbitrator. And with that, I turn the proceedings over to Justice Corrigan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean Freewald. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our conversation with these two remarkable jurists. It seems odd to me to call them Justice Chin and Justice Jenkins because we've all been friends for so long. So I hope you'll forgive me if I refer to them by their much more familiar Ming and Marty. Now, gentlemen, of course, we're having this conversation because, in part, because you are part of the USF firmament and two of its brightest stars. But not everyone will know your backstory. So let's begin there. By way of context for all that will come after, tell us a little bit about growing up, your family, where you grew up, where you went to school, the kind of Ming Chin, Marty Jenkins, my early years. Let's start with you, Ming.
I first want to thank Carol and Marty for doing this program. They've always been generous with their time, and this is no exception. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I was born and raised on a small potato farm in Klamath Falls, Oregon. My father was a Chinese immigrant. He immigrated in 1913. He was 18 years old. He came without family, without funds, and without language. And yet, in this remarkable land of hope and opportunity, he was able to carve out a remarkable life for his family. I am the youngest of 8 children. My parents did not have a formal education, and yet they were 2 of the smartest people I have ever known. All of us worked from sunup to sundown on that potato farm. It was 7 days a week. It was a wonderful place to grow up. But in spite of the fact that my parents did not have formal educations, they insisted that all of their children have them. I lost 2 of my siblings early on, but the 6 surviving children, by the time I attended grammar school, 3 were in college, 2 at Oregon State and 1 at UC Davis. The 3 youngest of us were sent to a private Catholic grammar school, Sacred Heart Academy, run by the Sisters of St. Francis. And it was there that we received the foundation for everything that followed in our careers. There was no question that all of us were going to college. They did not ask. They said, "You are." And everything that surrounded our early years was directed towards education. So that was the place I grew up.
Marty, what about you?
Well, let me start by thanking the Dean, you, Justice Corrigan, Carol, and you, Justice Chin, for the opportunity to share the stage, as it were, with you this evening. Remarkable similarities to Justice Chin's upbringing. My parents, James and Myrtle Jenkins, migrated to San Francisco as part of the Great Migration of African Americans to both Los Angeles and San Francisco. They hailed from Texas and Baton Rouge, Louisiana, respectively, and they came here in search of a better life for themselves and, most importantly, for their children. I am the 4th eldest child born to James and Myrtle, and all 4 of us, not unlike Justice Chin's siblings, have been educated and are college graduates. My father was able to find a job here after he disembarked from a ship where he was a merchant marine with the San Francisco City and County as a clerk janitor at Coit Tower. And if you visited Coit Tower between 1968 and 1987, then you met my father, because it was only 2 men working there who would clean windows and wash toilets by morning and then take individuals up to the observation deck for the beautiful view of the San Francisco Bay by afternoon. They sacrificed what little money they had to buy a home in San Francisco, on the southern boundary out by San Francisco State College. And that's where the Jenkins kids grew up. They insisted that we go and attend Catholic grammar schools because my mother in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, had also attended Catholic grammar school. And that school was St. Michael's. It was run and staffed by the Daughters of Mary and Joseph. That was the order of nuns there. And they insisted, like Ming indicated, that there was no question that you were going to go to college, although young Martin didn't seem to always get the message. He was known as for being a little bit mischievous. And so one summer, to double down on the college expectation, they sent me to spend the summer with my grandparents, who had a farm in rural Brookshire, Texas, about 50 miles outside of Houston, where I learned how to slop hogs and milk cows. even how to prepare a chicken for dinner one evening and to work in the hot Texas sun. And I'm telling you, 2 months of that convinced me that studying was a lot easier than doing that work. And so that was the foundation, the sort of formation, the values and expectations of good Catholic school education that gave rise to clearly the expectation that I would attend college.
Marty, I had the exact same experience because working on that farm was so hard that it was a relief to go to school. So my parents had a method to their madness.
Yeah.
Well, Marty, we won't ask you to justify your small diversion into Broncoville before you got to USF. So let's just pick up the narrative. You're both college graduates now. Why law school and why USF, Marty?
Yeah. Well, law school was not in my plan of action. I really never met any lawyers, but the law school idea was implanted by the head football coach at that other school, Santa Clara University, who asked me one day what I was going to do when I graduated. And I proudly announced that I was going to play professional football, to which he responded, well, the initials of this school are USC. But if you want to play professional football, you're at the wrong USC. You should be at a school that's 350 miles to the south. So you're not playing professional football. I think you should become a lawyer. And I asked why. And he said that I had good grades, that I evidenced leadership skills because I was team captain on the football team. And then he did something curious. He introduced me to 3 African-American law students in the law school there to talk to me about why law, why they chose law, and the wide variety of things that one could do with a law degree. And I think that's where the idea was salted in my mind. And in particular, why USF? Because I had already had a taste of Jesuit education. And the Jesuits doubled down on the values that my parents taught me, which was respect for diversity, full inclusion in all of its stripes, culturally and spiritually as well. And also the value of public service, of serving others, of being a man for others. And so those things conspired to cause me to apply to USF, where I could live at home with my parents, defray some of the costs. And the visit to USF was incredible. The faculty that I met the dean of the law school. There was an esprit de corps amongst the students there. And it just felt like a place that I had spent time in, even though it was the first time I ever walked into the school.
So Ming, how did you find yourself in the groves of legal academia at USF?
Well, it actually started way back in grammar school. I told you that I boarded at Sacred Heart Academy with the Sisters of St. Francis. But by the time I got to junior high school, the sisters had had quite enough of the Chin family. They decided to stop boarding. The judge in town was a good friend of my father's. And when he heard of the situation, he called my father and said, Sam, why don't you have Ming come and live with me for the last 2 years of junior high school? I did that. What a remarkable experience. Judge David Vandenberg took me down to the courthouse. I observed jury trials. He gave me the gun in a murder case. I said, do I really want my fingerprints on that? He gave me Blackstone to read when I was 12. The relationship with the judge grew and grew. The conversations about the law intrigued me. I finally decided at USF that yes, indeed, I want to go to law school. And I asked the judge to write me a letter. I have a picture, an autographed picture of the judge, and behind that picture is that letter. When I was appointed to the Supreme Court, the judge's oldest daughter, Mary, drove down from Oregon to attend the confirmation hearing. She gave me her father's gavel. He said, I think the judge would want you to have this. I treasure my time with Judge Vandenberg. I had no idea what lawyers did until my experience with him. He taught me everything a good judge and a good lawyer ought to be. And I thank him to this day.
Well, I think he taught you pretty well. Now, Martin, before you devoted yourself to legal scholarship, you did take another little detour into the National Football League. You just have to tell us about that.
Well, there's not a whole lot to say about it. I think that the head football coach at Santa Clara was right. I was at the wrong school, and that became very obvious to me when we got in camp. And I recall the first or second preseason game, I, as a member of the Seattle Seahawks, we traveled to San Francisco to play the 49ers. And as every rookie knows, that to make a team, you have to perform well on special teams. And for me, that meant the kickoff coverage team, where the ball is kicked to start the game and you run down and tackle the person who receives it, the ball carrier. And I just remember the coach of the special teams telling me, he says, Martin, when that ball is kicked, I want you to run down that field and throw your body into that mass of humanity like a sacrificial lamb. Well, that sent off all kinds of bells for me, because in my experience, sacrifices never did well, what I was taught. So, but I did what was asked of me. I ran down the field, and when I woke up, I found out that I'd been knocked out cold, and I started to think, this law school thing sounds pretty good. I don't have to worry about getting knocked out. USF had admitted me, and I decided I don't even travel back with the team. I decided just to stay in San Francisco and quit. And was a couple of weeks late for law school, but USF said I could come. And as they say, the rest is history.
Indeed it is. Now, Ming, many judges and lawyers are insightful about statutes and procedures and the rigors of trial practice. But you have developed a deep interest in science and how science relates to the world of law. How did that happen?
Well, Carol, when I was on the Court of Appeal, a forensic DNA case was assigned to me. What did I know about DNA? I had to learn that from the ground up. And believe me, there were not a lot of books that judges could go to get that background. So I dove in. I wrote a case called People versus Barney. It got some notoriety, and people thought I really knew what I was talking about. And then they started asking me to teach it. I said, oh no, now I really have to learn it. So I first taught it for CJUR, our continuing education arm, to judges and lawyers. And then other people throughout the state started calling me and saying, we want to know about this new science, come and teach it. I was actually invited to the FBI Academy to teach DNA. And then invitations started coming from abroad. I went twice to Italy, 3 times to Canada, once to China, once to Taiwan, but the crown jewel was an invitation from the royal family in Thailand to come to Bangkok to teach DNA. Princess Chulaborn is the youngest daughter of the king and queen. She actually has a PhD in genetics, went home to Bangkok, started a genetics institute. She's a princess. She does not have to do anything, but she got a PhD in genetics and asked me to come to Thailand to teach Thai judges. So all of that experience in teaching DNA was a valuable experience. I even recruited Justice Corrigan to participate in a week-long session on science and the law at the Salk Institute. I got the 2 premier jurists in California to teach scientific evidence, Justice Carol Corrigan and Justice Mark Simons. I actually got a note from a judge from San Mateo after that program. He said, Justice Chin, that was the best continuing education program I have ever gone to. If you continue to put them on, I will pay my own way to attend. It
Those of you
was,
who are not judges may not really appreciate the full impact of a judge offering to pay his own way for continuing education. So that is high praise indeed. Now, you both were very successful and highly regarded as lawyers. What drew you to a position on the bench, Marty?
Well, just like what sparked my interest in law school, the idea came from someone else. In fact, that someone else was you, Justice Corrigan, and Justice Chin as well. I remember getting a call. I was house counsel at Pacific Bell, a good job that paid good money. And you called and said that you had been at a lunch and were talking about people who would make a good judge, and my name came up. To which I responded, Carol, you've reached Martin Jenkins. Are you sure you have the right person? I don't like judges. They make my life difficult. Why would I want to be one? And then you did what you and Ming have done over the course of years, is to slowly explain to me what the upside of this new proposition would be and why it fit. And so that's exactly what happened. I decided to put my name in with good support from you and others and from Ming. And I will just say this too. I mean, one of the things that's so fascinating in my career is when I landed in the Superior Court, I got a call one day from Justice Chin, who was the presiding justice in Division III of the Court of Appeal, offering me an opportunity to come as a trial judge and sit temporarily in the Court of Appeal. And again, I answered in ways that don't make much sense to anybody but me by responding, I'm not interested in being a Court of Appeal justice. There was a pregnant pause, after which Justice Chin came back and said, well, Marty, do you think you'll be a better trial judge if you understand how the Court of Appeal evaluates your work? The bell went off, and as they say again, the rest is history.
Now, I'm pretty sure that both of you remember what it was like getting a call from the governor offering you a position on the California Supreme Court. You want to give us a reprise of that one, Ming?
oh, I remember like it was yesterday. I was actually in San Diego to attend a meeting of the Appellate Committee of the Judicial Council. Marv Baxter, who you both know, he's was the appointment secretary for Governor Deukmejian when all three of us were appointed to our first judicial positions. So Marv was on the Supreme Court at the time. He was the chair of the committee. I entered the room and Justice Miriam Vogel said, Ming, she's now retired from the Second District Court of Appeal in Los Angeles. She said, Ming, come and sit by me. I have some hot gossip for you. I sit down and Miriam says, I bet you the governor calls you within 2 weeks, appointing you to the Supreme Court. I actually laughed and I said, first of all, I don't think I'm going to hear from the governor at all. And secondly, it certainly won't happen by the end of February. It took him 6 months the last time to make a decision. Marv calls the meeting to order. Someone from the hotel comes in with a silver tray with a note on it. Please call the governor. I called Governor Wilson. I told Marv I had to go make a telephone call, and I called Governor Wilson and he said, I told you 2 years ago, if I had a second seat on the court, I would appoint you. I now have that second seat if you're still interested. I then had to go find Carol.
Your Carol, not this Carol.
My Carol. She was shopping at the plaza across the street from the hotel. And I said, how am I going to find her in this massive shopping center? I walk up one flight of stairs and she's on the phone talking to Jason, our son, who was at UC San Diego. So it all fell into place.
Marty, what was that call like for you?
Well, I also feel like it was just yesterday, but it's certainly a bit more close in time than Ming's experience. But I too was surprised to get that call from the governor. principally because I was serving as his judicial appointments secretary, which meant that I made recommendations to the governor to fill all vacancies across the state of California in the judiciary, including the Supreme Court. And so for the previous 6 months, I had been spearheading the effort to find Ming's successor. And of the finalists that I submitted to the governor, Martin Jenkins' name was nowhere to be found. So when I submitted the names to the governor, he asked to have a conversation with me a week later. And I was actually in this building, the San Francisco courthouse here, on the other side in the governor's office on the 10th floor. And I took the call and we talked for about an hour about the finalists I submitted. And then he closed his folder and he said, well, that's all well and good, but I'm looking at the person that I'd like to nominate to serve on the California Supreme Court. And I turned around in my chair because I couldn't conceive that he was talking to me. And he told me to turn around. I'm talking to you. I think you'd be fabulous. I think this is the moment, it's the time. You're the right person for this position. And then he said to me, your father would be so proud of you. I know your dad worked at Quake Tower. He worked long and hard for all of his children, as did your mother. They would be so proud if they were here, but they're singing my praises in heaven as we speak. And of course, that caused me to be a little misty-eyed. The call ended and I got up, and as I turned, looked out to the west from that 10th floor vantage point, I could see the hospital I was born in, St. Joseph's Hospital. How often in life does someone in a moment like that have the opportunity to really gauge the journey, where they've come from, where they started, and now reaching the pinnacle of my legal career with the governor's request? It was an extraordinary moment.
Marty, it was an extraordinary moment for you. It was an extraordinary moment for the state, and we are all so proud of you. But I want to remind you of a conversation that you and I and Carol had when I told you that I was going to retire, and we all speculated about how wonderful it would be if you were my replacement. I think Carol's response was, if that happens, I will light candles in perpetuity. Carol, I hope you have a lot of matches.
I have lots of matches, and I have been quoted as saying when Marty Jenkins got appointed to the Supreme Court, it was like getting a pony for Christmas. Now, to switch gears just slightly, I am pretty sure, gentlemen, that not every day of your blessed lives was filled with green lights and blue skies. You've both encountered a speed bump along the way now and then. Tell us about one of those and how you grappled with that challenge. Let's start with you, Ming.
Well, there were lots of speed bumps, but there's one that stands out. When I was, when I was appointed to the court, that was not the first time that I was under consideration. I was considered with 6 other people as the replacement for Justice Ed Pinelli. The governor ended up interviewing 2 of us, Justice Kay Werdiger, a colleague of ours on the 3rd District Court of Appeal, and myself. And the governor actually told me, Ming, it's between you and Kay. They were classmates at Bolt. I almost said to the governor, why don't you just appoint Kay and leave me out of this? But I didn't do that. I went through all of the motions. Talking about lighting candles, I actually was interviewed at the Ritz-Carlton, in a suite at the Ritz-Carlton. And I was a few minutes early, so I went into the church on Bush, I think it's Notre Dame des Victoires, and I lit a candle before I went to interview with the governor. Anyway, on the day the governor announces the appointment, he calls me first and he says, Ming, I like everything about you. If I had a second seat on the court today, I would appoint you, but I'm going to give this one to Kay. I said, Governor, It's been an honor just to be considered for appointment. I appreciate it. Kay will be terrific. But that was a speed bump for me. It was quite disappointing. But what did I get in return? I got Carol Corrigan in my chambers. She was appointed to replace Kay. What a blessing that was. We had such a terrific time. Of course, Carol had to help pick me up off the floor from the disappointment of not getting picked the first time. I was eventually appointed by the governor to be the presiding justice of our Division III. Carol came down to Los Angeles to testify at that confirmation hearing, and she really helped me get over the disappointment of not getting appointed to the California Supreme Court. We went about our business. I think we did it rather well. It was an honor and a pleasure to serve with Carol in Division III.
Wow. Wow.
And right back at you. Now, Marty, what's your speed bump story?
You know, I've had some challenges along the way. I mean, I think that's just that's a staple of life. But I thought when I thought about this question, I recall that I almost left law school in my second year. I became a bit disillusioned in taking constitutional law, and we got to a segment of the course where the professor was teaching the Korematsu case and similar type cases. And as you all know, that case involved the internment of a number of Japanese Americans in this country in World War II. And the justification was military necessity, sort of a made-up construct that was utilized by the United States Supreme Court. And I just thought, you know, I came into law school because I wanted to do things to help my community, and I saw the law as a route to do that, objectively fair and just. And I became a bit disillusioned. And the way that I grappled with it is I announced to my father that I was going to leave law school, and he said, "Sit down, let's talk about this." And the thing that he told me was that he thought the best way to work through that process and the feelings I had was to learn my craft, was to double down and learn everything about the law I could, and constitutional law in particular, and then to use that learning to do what I thought had not been done well in that case. And that way I would bring honor to myself, I would help other people, and that was the goal at the outset in the first place of going to law school. So my dad, a man not unlike Ming's, who did not graduate from college, was so wise about the world and the ways of the world. And having him there in that moment is perhaps why I'm here in this moment, because I was sure going to leave.
Well, that James Jenkins has left quite a legacy. Now, gentlemen, I know that your USF education is very important to you. Share a little of your view on what you learned at USF, how it helped shape the man you have become, and how it's contributed to your professional success. Ming, want to take that one first?
Sure. You know, Carol, I actually had 11 years of Jesuit education.
And live to tell about it.
The Jesuits took a farm boy from Oregon and tried to turn him into a scholar of the classics. I actually read the Iliad in Greek. I read the Odyssey in Latin. Now, you all know that much of our written opinions are in Latin. It just seems like they're written in Greek.
That was really good.
But the Jesuits had this overarching philosophical and theological perspective. It was really as if Aristotle and Plato were having a conversation throughout history. And you bring that up to the modern philosopher, more modern philosophers like Martin Buber and Father Teilhard de Chardin, and you see the conversation that these philosophers are having throughout history. When I became an appellate judge, I thought, I'm really talking to my predecessors through these opinions, and you kind of work their knowledge and intelligence into your opinion. So I felt that the entire Jesuit education was helpful throughout my judicial career. And I was always grateful to the legal education that I received at USF. But like Marty, there were times when it was very, very difficult. And there were times when the law professors were not all that opaque about what they were trying to show us. But overall, the legal education at USF was just superb, and I've always been grateful for that.
Tell us your take, Marty.
It would be hard to be more eloquent than Ming has just done in his exegesis about what is best about a Jesuit education. And I wholeheartedly agree with him. I will say, in addition, that for me, a Jesuit education was right in my wheelhouse because the notion of diversity, both culturally and spiritually, was one that was important to me. Full inclusion was important to me. The commitment to integrity, personal integrity, professional integrity, and professional ethics. When I attended USF, there wasn't at that juncture an ethics component to the bar exam. So there wasn't automatically a justification for teaching professional ethics, but USF did it anyway as a part of the Jesuit values, that they were training lawyers, that they wanted to be, one, men and women of integrity, and two, committed to the highest ethics. And that was then overlaying with the intellectual rigor that Ming has talked about, sort of talking to those who have come before us. So for all of those reasons, I think that my Jesuit education has allowed me, when I hear people say things about me, I'm always focused on the fact that I'm talked about in terms of my integrity, how hard I work industry, that I wrestle with concepts until I find my way. Other people may disagree through them honestly and credibly, and that it's done as Ming is known for, and you too, Justice Corrigan, with a degree of compassion and humility. And for me, I can't imagine a better description that I'm more proud of than the one that I just provided.
Now, you have both spoken eloquently about a number of your mentors, but most people know that you in turn have mentored a very great many. Talk for a bit about how we can all be better at doing that, serving as mentors, and why it's so important to do that. How about it, Marty?
Well, I think it's important for the reasons that have been made very clear here. The mentorship in my life and career has resulted in much of what I've gotten to do. My mentors, I've talked about you, Carol and Ming. There's Judge Sandra Brown Armstrong, who was the first African-American woman to sit on the Alameda County Superior Court, and Judge Thelton Henderson, who was the first African-American to be the chief judge of the federal district court in San Francisco. Globally, all of you saw things in me that I didn't see. And the value set that you all reflected, I could see myself in, because those are the values that were imparted to me by my parents and through my Jesuit education. And because I could see myself in you, in all of you, I could then aspire to do the things that you were doing. I always say to people, mentorship is important because many times what you're able to see is really based on where you stand. And you need someone to elevate you so that you can see more than where you stand. And so for me, mentorship has been crucial, and I think we should be intentional about it. So what I try to do, because you asked as part of the question, is to spend time going to localities and places and meeting with students who otherwise don't have access to a federal judge or a Supreme Court judge, to spend time in those places so that they too can see something different than they see from where they stand. And in that way, we continue to create generations of people who can aspire to do things that are wonderful and give back to their community.
Ming?
Well, one of the individuals that Marty mentored was my daughter, Jennifer. Jennifer came to me one day and said, I'd really like to clerk for a federal district court judge. And I said, there is only one that you should apply to, Martin Jenkins. Jennifer did that for 2 years. What a remarkable experience that was for her. She is now a senior general counsel for the University of California. She's in the general counsel's office working for Charlie Robinson. Just got her started off in the right direction. But I, like Marty, feel that, what is that?
Coming to serve the warrant on you, Ming.
Is that your phone, Corrigan? It must be time for us to go have a glass of wine. Yeah. Just a brief blurb on the mentoring business. I've always been partial to USF. As a matter of fact, I interviewed a potential associate, and we eventually hired him, and he eventually became a partner. His name is Matt Graham, and he just happens to be a grammar school classmate of Marty's at St. Michael's. So these touches of our past keep coming up, but it has been a grand journey, and I really appreciate traveling it with the both of you.
I think the three of us can all agree as working class kids and Catholic school kids that this job on the Supreme Court's pretty good. What did you enjoy most about your time on the Supreme Court, Ming?
Oh, that's an easy one. Working with you.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, when Arnold Schwarzenegger decided to put Carol Corrigan on the Supreme Court, he made my day. I mean, I was reunited with my partner from the 3rd District Court of Appeal, and we took our work very seriously. We worked hard, but we never took ourselves that seriously, as you can tell by this program. It is so terrific to be able to work with someone who you trust explicitly to tell you when you're wrong. Carol will do that in no uncertain terms.
Not very often.
But we also had the opportunity to work with other outstanding people, Chief Justice Ron George, Chief Justice Tani Cantil Sakauye, and both were superb chiefs in very different ways, but they were perfect for their time on the Supreme Court. We also served with outstanding associate justices, and I have to point out Justice Marv Baxter, who was responsible for putting all three of us on the judicial path, and he has been a good friend for more than 30 years. So my time on the court, Carol Corrigan tops the list. Marv Baxter is also in there. I wish I were serving with Marty, but we can't go back in time. But I could not be more proud to have Marty Jenkins as my successor on the court.
So I know, Marty, that it's still a little new to you, but what are you liking the most so far?
Well, I will say, sort of apropos of what Ming said, I really enjoy working with my colleagues. To a person, they have been wonderfully welcoming. I wish that the citizens of California could really see how hard each of my colleagues work, how reasonable they are about the positions that they take. And so I've just been sort of embraced and welcomed into this fraternity in ways that how would I know, but I didn't expect. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I think the thing in the short time I've been here, which is, as you always say, Carol, a nanosecond, I think the thing that I enjoy most thus far are the conferences every Wednesday, where we decide as a body which cases that we're going to review. And there are a few exceptions to that rule. But what I think I enjoy most is I like jazz. And I tend to think of the conferences as someone in the jazz musical world riffs in a new song. We come into the conference and we have a memo that provides a backdrop on the case and gives some information that's pertinent. And then a discussion ensues. And it's the first job I've had as a judge where you get to decide what cases you're going to review. And how wonderful is that opportunity? It's an important aspect of the job. But it's also, for me, one that's been surprisingly enjoyable.
Gentlemen, you have both packed an amazing amount of wisdom and a lot of experience into your legal careers. Speak to the next generation. What should, in your judgment, young people be thinking about in shaping their professional lives and maybe considering a position on the bench? What do you think, Marty?
A couple of things, I think. I think that you should endeavor to expose yourself to areas that you find interesting. And you have 3 years of law school to do that through your selection of courses, externships, summer employment. I would say don't be wooden in the idea or the notion that you know what you want to do for the next 60 years, because you can practice law for a long time. The second thing I would say is don't be afraid of constructive criticism. That's how you grow. And you can decide and discern constructive criticism versus criticism for criticism's sake, because constructive criticism always comes, it rides in on the wings of suggestions that help you improve. And that's how you know that it's constructive criticism that you should listen to. And the last two things I would say is, we've been talking about it in the length and breadth of this conversation, develop a sense of values that are important to you, because those values will be your North Star as you migrate through your professional career. And even in times of turbulence, they'll lead you safely home. And last, if this program suggests nothing else, mentorship is really important. And in finding mentors, find people who reflect the value set that you have now defined for yourself. And in doing so, you'll see a bit of yourself in them. And that will also help you realize that you can accomplish much in your professional career.
As you both have. And Ming, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I concur. I think Marty has described the assets that law students and new lawyers need to keep in mind. I would just underline the what I call intellectual curiosity part of what Marty was talking about. Never be afraid to learn something new, because you never know where it's going to lead. When I got that DNA case, I had no idea that I would be traveling the world teaching it. I'll give you another example. When I was appointed to the Superior Court, the PJ was Michael Bellacci, a good friend of all of ours. Michael said, "Ming, what area of the law do you know least about?" I went down the list. I had some 50 jury trials in the DA's office, tried everything from drunk driving cases to murder. I tried every kind of civil case imaginable, construction, employment law, securities, commodities. I even had a water case. I said, Mike, the only thing I have never touched is family law. And Mike said, guess where you're going to be assigned? You're right. I was assigned to family law. I actually liked it. And 6 months later, Mike Malachi came to me and said, Ming, I really need you in law and motion. And I said, Michael, I could teach law and motion. I could do law and motion standing on my head. But do you really think it's fair now that I've learned family law to move me out? He said, you're absolutely right. You can stay. But I want you to know you're the only judge that has ever asked to stay in family law. And then Justice Don King called me, and he had taught family law at USF for years, and he was exhausted. And he said, would you take over my family law class? I said, you've got to be kidding. Anyway, I taught the family law class for several years at USF. I actually developed my own casebook. It was really interesting the first semester I did it because I was about 6 weeks ahead of the students in reading what was in the casebook. But never be afraid to learn something new, because you never know how rewarding it can be.
Gentlemen, this could turn out to be our last question, so let's switch gears just a little. At times, our professional lives can feel kind of all-consuming, but what do you do to keep it in balance? What do you like to do for fun, Marty?
I have developed insight into the importance of having interests outside law late in life. But not a minute too soon. These days, because I live in Los Angeles now, and it's an hour commute from my home to the courthouse, I have found the wonderful world of audiobooks. And I've, as Ming suggested earlier, I've gone back, I'm listening to some of the classics, and I've even updated my reading menu by most recently reading a book called How the Word is Passed by a wonderful African-American man who does a complete study on the history of slavery in this country. The other thing is I'm taking piano lessons, and Ming's wife, Carol, is a very good piano player. And I'm hoping that now that things are relaxed a bit with respect to COVID, that I'm going to be able to make good on the promise she made me to give me a piano lesson. And I'm undaunted in my pursuit of the piano by the nickname that you have given me, Carol, which is Jelly Roll Jenkins.
And no sobriquet was more earned. Ming, what do you do for fun?
Well, I'm doing a lot of golfing, and I can't wait for you to join me in another round out on the links. I hope your rehab is going well. I love it. My son Jason is the one who got me into it. I told him when he asked me to play, I said, it's an old man's game. I'll play when I can't play tennis anymore. He said, it will be too late. He was right. I started too late, but I'm still enjoying it. And I want to underline Marty's comment about audiobooks. I don't know. Are we getting close to time? We are.
We're good. You go ahead.
I have over 200 audiobooks on my phone. I
keep
love
working
them.
your way through those.
The latest one I've read is Jennifer Doudna's A Crack in the Code. Jennifer Doudna is the scientist from UC Berkeley that just won the Nobel Prize for CRISPR. I'll just tell you a short blurb. She was raised in Hawaii. Her high school science teacher, when she inquired about taking biology, her high school science teacher said, "Science is not for girls." I wonder what he's saying now. Jennifer Doudna is the first woman from UC Berkeley to win the Nobel Prize. And her most prized part of that is that she gets a lifetime parking space in Berkeley.
One of the most valuable things you can have at Berkeley. My dear friends, I'm sorry to have to say this, but I believe it is time to turn this program back to Dean Freewald. So, Dean?
Thank you so much, Justice Corrigan, for the masterful and often entertaining job moderating this discussion. And thank you, Justices Jenkins and Chin, for sharing with us stories and insights about your lives prior to your time on the bench and as judges and justices. I hope, and I do believe, that USF law is as welcoming, rigorous, and devoted to integrity now as it was just a few years ago when you each studied here. And one of the things that we take great pride in is our inclusive community that embraces and celebrates the diverse backgrounds of our students. Our student body is majority minority, with a third of our students being first-generation college students and 25% of our students identifying as LGBTQ. We teach our students, as Justice Jenkins' father so wisely said, that the law can be a tool for good if you learn it well and learn how to use it well. I couldn't ask for a better place to work than USF Law, nor with more inspiring students, faculty, staff, and alumni. And one of the things that makes my job so enjoyable is the involvement of alumni like our two renowned guests today, who continually give back to the law school community. Thank you so much again. And thank you also to Justice Don King, whom Justice Chin just mentioned, who has funded with his wife a generous scholarship to support our law students interested in family law. And with that said, I would like to take this opportunity to remind our guests that they may donate to the fabulous USF Law School on the giving page that you should be seeing on the screen periodically. There are many worthy causes to choose from, including the just established and previously mentioned endowed scholarship to honor Justice Ming Chin and support law students with financial need. You can also support our general scholarship fund or another designated endowed scholarship fund of your choosing. You can support our Public Interest Law Foundation, which provides summer grants to law students who work in public interest jobs, or you can support one of our law clinics, such as our Racial Justice Clinic or our Immigration and Deportation Defense Clinic, both of which offer students the opportunity to do real lawyering in areas of critical need. You can invest in our Academic and Bar Exam Success Program, which has had tremendous success in training our students and graduates to be good students and successful bar takers, so that USF may continue to graduate diverse, excellent, and ethical attorneys and judges and justices like Justices Chin and Jenkins. Please reach out to me and my team for more information about our programs and about how to get involved in the law school. Thank you for attending this evening's discussion, and thank you again to our esteemed justices, Corrigan, Chin, and Jenkins. Thank you.